What's up guys, it's your host Spartanic Arts DxD back with another high school DxD related video. And today we have What If Issei Was the Son of Great-red Part 6. I know it's finally back per request, and yes, What If Naruto Betrayed is still being continued, so don't worry about that as well. If you guys want to know exactly when I upload / my upload schedule, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button. And before we start, a special thank you to my balance breakers: Rob the King, Lachlan Yates, Atomic Warlord 58, Crumbling Darkness Sphere, Madly Wolf 333, and Lewis, The Beast YT3, VRWolf #2347, Sinrar Q, Jordan Pacho, Mazaku, Dr_MLG_ is the bomb, Asimodus, and Grim Fireshot Gamer. Thank you so much for becoming a balance breaker, which is the highest membership tier. Also, if you guys want to see what ifs on Goku, or what if Goku was betrayed, if you guys want to see what if Goku was betrayed, let me know down in the comments. And that is the first series, along with Issei the God Killer is Born, will have pictures. I swear I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen. It's gonna be really hard, but I'm gonna make it happen. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into part 6. If you guys want to know exactly where we are at chapter 8, like right in the middle of it, basically. Here we go. I can vouch for Fafnir's innocence at this. He is working with me on a special project of mine and hasn't gone missing. Although he is very strong, he is one to cause such meaningless destruction unless someone went after his treasures. In addition, if he was responsible for the devastation here, we would see a variety of different weapons and sacred treasures left behind. Therefore, I could definitely conclude that it wasn't him, as Azazel further stated his opinion. How about Yulong? Everyone took a moment to think about that, and all came to the same conclusion, which was, no way! Yulong is the youngest of the Dragon Kings, so his strength is not in question, but rather his personality. He is a lazy dragon who retired after his biggest battle. He might even be lazier than Mizgar. At least he said he would do something when at the end of the world comes, Yulong would most likely complain. It is a miracle that Sun Wukong is still able to tolerate that guy. I would have lost my temper ages ago, stated Zeus. Ho! It does not take much to lose your temper, Odin told Zeus, which caused Zeus to glare at him before he could start anything, as Azazel quickly intervened by moving forward with the conversation. The last one, Vitra, has been sealed long ago after his defeat to Indra, so it definitely wasn't him. However, I highly doubt even a Dragon King could have caused this. The land and its surrounding have been reduced to ash. The level of power needed to accomplish this must have been great. At least God class, or I dare even say, this being holds the power equivalent to a heavenly dragon, explained Ajuka. What? A heavenly dragon? Have Dragon Albion been released from their sacred gears? Shouted Zeus. As strong as Zeus is, even he knows his limits and how outmatched he would be against either Drag or Albion. Everyone except Azazel, who already knew the answer to this question, turned their attention to Michael as if asking him the very same question, but he simply shook his head. No. According to the sacred gear system, Drag and Albion are still locked within the boosted gear, and Divine and gear respectively so. I can assure you that it was not them. He stated with his traditional smile, revealing everyone's worry. Although this brought forth an entire new possibility that sent chills down their spine, Suzek's voiced it himself. If it is not them, we have to assume that it is another dragon that possesses at least the very strength equivalent to that of Dragon Albion. Any ideas? He worriedly stated. This was not pleasant theory. He, alongside his fellow faction leaders, could still recall the battle they had against the fearsome beast of destruction. It took the combined might of all three great factions alongside of the God of Bible and the original 4 Devil Kings to take on 2 dragons. Even though they won in the end, sealing the 2 dragons in sacred gears, the casualties sufficed were astronomical. Millions of people, fallen angels, and devils died in this conflict, along with many more were injured, including God and the 4 original Devil Kings, and could not fight anymore. The mere thought of having a fight another dragon at that level terrified every leader present. Odin put forth his thoughts while stroking his beard. How about the evil dragons then? They certainly have the audacity and strength to cause this amount of destruction. I had originally thought about it, but the only evil dragons that I could think of that could cause this would be Aphostus and the Eclipse Dragon, Zidaka, the Dabolism Thousand Dragon or Cromcrotch, the Seascent Circle Dragon, the strongest evil dragons known to exist. However, Apostasis has been defeated centuries ago. Zidaka fought against the army of gods of Zoroastrion, then was defeated by the hero. and later sealed. Finally, Crumcrutch disappeared after evil god Baylor was defeated by Alu. Since no one heard of him, it is presumed that he is either dead or sealed like the others, explained Juka as he expressed his opinion on the matter. Gabriel added her own 2 cents on the matter. In addition, even though the surrounding environments were destroyed, there are no reports of any casualties in Ko. It seems as though whoever did this made sure not to harm the citizens. This is not the typical actions of an evil dragon, who do not care about innocent lives. Very true, although it still does not eliminate the possibility that it could have been some other evil dragon, added Amaterasu, who was looking at Yakuza when she said it. Yakuza lowered her head in sadness, understanding who she was talking about, although the rest of them didn't notice. Ajuka could see Azazel complimenting something and decided to ask him about it. Do you have some other guesses as to who it might be responsible for this, Azazel? Everyone turned the attention to Azazel, who sighed. I do, but I'm hoping to be wrong on this case, as it would be an absolute worst-case scenario, he stated, causing his peers to raise an eyebrow and worry, wondering who he could be talking about. The only one who seemed divine, who Azazel was thinking about it, was Ajuka. You don't think it's... He shuddered as he received a nod confirming his fear. There is a possibility that it could have been Ophis, stated Azazel, surprising everyone, leaving an air of fear in the atmosphere. Ophis? Have you gone mad, Azazel? Why in the hell would Ophis even bother attacking such a remote location as this? If I'm not mistaken, Ophis has not been seen for the past 9 years or so. So why would she suddenly reappear and attack a random location owned by the devils? Unless, of course, they did something to scare her. Zeus shouted. I can assure all of you that we did no such thing. It would not even dream to cause a conflict, responded Sir Zex to Zeus's accusation. Let's calm down. There is no point in fighting amongst each other when there is simply speculations on Azazel's part, Michael said in between the 2 leaders, succeeding in calming them down. In other words, we are no closer to figuring out who did this, Zeus commented. It was Seraphol who decided to answer his query. Unfortunately not. However, we will begin issuing a full investigation to figure out who or what caused this. After all, we cannot let little Rias occupy a dangerous territory. She winked at Sir Zex when she said that he answered with a thankful smile. She continued on. Also, my little Sona is interested in coming to school here, so Big Sister Magical Leviathan will sparkle and make dangers go away. Waving her hand in extra emphasis, she went from serious to playful in one go, which at least relaxed the tense atmosphere going on. I can provide you some aid in your investigation, that being opposed to potential threat to not only the Devil's factions, but to ours as well. I would like to assist in any way I can, Azazel told the mouse. We, the Seraphs, would also like to help you as well. We currently have a ceasefire amongst our factions, but this could be the first step to achieve peace between us, Michael added. Thank you. Azazel and Michael, we will accept your aid. Sir Zex thanked them with a small bow. This time, Yakuza stepped forward to ask, forgive me for imposing, Lord Sir Zex, but would it be troublesome to ask you to keep me and Lady Amaterasu informed of any progress in your investigation? I would be very grateful for this favor, and if you wish, we can also provide a bit of assistance. She stood bowing towards the mountains, which then followed by Amaterasu doing the same thing. I ask the very same from you. It would be so kind as to keep us informed. We would be grateful. It is no problem whatsoever, Yakuza, Amaterasu's son. We understand that being may be a potential threat to not only our 3 factions, but the rest as well. Therefore, it is only natural that you would wish to know who did this. Seraphol, you will be in charge of the investigation and relay any progress we have made. We will also keep the Norse faction and Olympus informed as a show of goodwill. Azazel, can you please keep Odin informed of any progress? And may I ask you and Michael and Gabriel to do the same with Olympus? Sir Zex asked his fellow leaders. Sure, no problem. I'll keep this old geezer informed, Azazel answering, pointing at Odin. It would be my pleasure, said Michael. Same here. It has been a while since I last talked to Erasan, Artemis, and Athena. I cannot wait to see them again. Gabriel followed up after Michael, excited at the prospect of seeing her friends again, although her remark caught Zeus by surprise. You met with my wife and daughters? What did you talk about? Zeus was a bit unnerved at the fact that his wife and daughter may have spilled some unnecessary information about Olympus, or even worse, talking about him, so he tried to divine some information out of Gabriel. However, Gabriel simply giggled and placed a finger on her lips. Sorry, it's a secret. Zeus, understanding he will get nothing, decided it was time to go back home as the matters were settled. Very well. I guess I will go back home and explain to my faction what occurred here. I will wait for your report, Seraph, Michael, and Gabriel. They both nodded and Zeus disappeared after that. Odin, Yakuza, Amaterasu left soon afterwards, leaving only 3 faction leaders by themselves. I will start coordinating our forces to begin the investigation as soon as possible. I will also let them know that they will be working alongside fallen angels and not cause any unnecessary conflicts, although it will take some time to get used to it, Seraphal stated. Very well. I will notify my group and let them know of our collaborated effort. The leader of the investigation group will be Pumi-san, and since this is Devil territory, I will let her know that she has to abide by your instructions. Seraphal, but extremely worker, and I have no doubt you two will work fine together. Azazel told. Michael followed soon after. And I will send my brother Raphael to aid you. He is very smart and malicious individual, so he might be able to pick up on things others may have missed. Very well. Once I wish to thank you all for the aid you are providing and hope that this is a start for peace we all desire. Hopefully, this unknown individual isn't a threat. I would rather have him as an ally, but all we can do is hope. The investigation bears fruit and reveals the information we require. Finisher Zex as everyone nodded, teleported back to their homes, all of ignorant of what transpired during their conversation. In the dimensional gap, 30 minutes ago. Whilst the leaders of each factions were busy talking to one another, a portal opened up in the dimensional gap where a large crimson dragon was sent spiraling through. Regaining his bearing, Issei used his wings to rebalance himself and form his expression. You could tell that he was enraged at being tossed aside. With an enormous burst of speed, unbefitting of his size, he slashed at his father with his claw. Great-red, not expecting such speed from his son, could do nothing but raise his arms to guard. Unfortunately, his human form did not provide as much defense as his dragon form, as his blood splurted out of his arm from Issei's slash. Luckily, it was a minor wound, for Great-red at least, and his regenerative abilities healed him up very fast, leaving only a few scars in its place. Having gained distance from his enemy, Issei began to charge up and roar and fired towards Great-red, who immediately retaliated with his own. Both attacks collided with each other, causing a mass explosion blocking the other view of one another. However, Issei took advantage of this, as he appeared through the smoke, rearing his fist backwards, engulfed in crimson flames, swinging it towards his father. This time, however, Great-red had enough time to harden his entire body and scales, and crossed his arms ready to take the attack, and yet, when Issei's attack struck him, he felt an incredibly amount of pain in his stomach as he was blasted backwards a great deal. It appears as though his son's attack not only pierced through his guard, but even fire managed to cause damage to his stomach. Regaining his bearings, he looked over himself to check the damage, and he saw his arm scorched, leaking a lot of blood, and his stomach was also charred by Issei's crimson's flames. He was incredibly surprised. It seems those flames of his were a manifestation of his son's limitless potential and strength. Even though this was not the time or place, he could also not help but feel an overwhelming pride at how powerful his son really is. That's my boy, he thought to himself. Not even the feared ultimate attacks of Dragon Albion, said to be able to reduce even a god to ash, was able to scratch him, and yet here was his son, barely even 10 years old, displaying strength that far surpasses that of the heavenly dragons despite being a young himself. Unfortunately, his son did not give him the time to relax, as he dived forward towards him once again. They started trading blows with one another, with Great-red taking the major bulk of the damage between them. This was due to 2 reasons. The first is, as stated previously, his flames are able to penetrate through his defenses, causing him severe damage, so he has no choice but to evade or dodge Issei strikes completely, since a mere gaze causes moderate pain. The second reason is that Great-red is holding back as he does not wish to kill his son. Simply incapacitate him, but Issei is not holding back one bit. Great-red understood that his options were very limited to defeat his son, in a bigger state he is. He considered at one point to transform into his dragon form to overpower Issei, but his son's flames rendered that idea useless. All it would do was give Issei a bigger target to hit, and he would not be able to deal with his son's speed, so he remained in human form. This left only one option, that is to get Ophis to help stop their son, but he knew it would be difficult. Ophis, I know this is going to sound impossible, but I need your help to stop our son. Are you out of your mind? There's no way I can hurt my little boy. I can't do this. Him trying so desperately not to cry at the situation they are in, knowing that the time was of the essence, he could not afford to start arguing with her, so he shouted to get the point across. Orphis, if we do not do something soon, then Issei will die. Seeing that caught her attention, he decided to continue, albeit in less violent tone. Issei's body is not strong enough to hold the massive power he holds within him. That is the reason why we place so many layers of seals on him. You know this, but now, with the seals removed, his body is slowly breaking apart. Even now, our son's body is slowly taking damage from his own power. She shifted her attention from her husband to her son, and could immediately tell that he was right. There's some small fractures all across his body, and more were appearing by the second. His body could still not withstand the overwhelming power he possesses. If we do not do something soon, then Issei's body will implode upon itself and he will die. I know very well how painful the mere idea of hurting him is. Do you think I want to do this to my own son? Every single hit I inflict on him causes my heart to break into pieces, and all through our scuffle. I can tell that, for whatever reason, Issei is suffering greatly. However, at this moment, this is the only means of saving him, so please, Orphis, help save our son. Seeing Issei's state, knowing that her husband's claim was right, she tried to muster as much courage as possible to do the unthinkable. She would most likely be devastated, but at the very least their son would be alive, and at this very moment that is all she wants. Very well. For our sake of our son, I will help you and make this quick. I simply cannot bear to inflict much harm to Issei, she told him as he simply not agreeing with her state. It isn't easy for him, as well as finishing as though as possible is the most viable plan. All of a sudden, they turned their attention towards Issei, who was responsible for the roar, and they saw him begin to gather a massive amount of energy towards his mouth. It seems he was preparing to unleash a devastating roar. Nevertheless, Great-red could tell that he was aiming to finish things as the amount of power is far larger in his attack than it was in the previous breath. However, this also means that time is running out for Issei. Looks like Issei is planning to finish this one massive attack. We will need to combine our powers together in order to counter this. We finish this quickly as Issei's body will no longer be able to sustain the massive power building within himself and eventually self-destruct. Great-red stated to Orphis, who simply nodded as both dragons gathered massive amount of energy into their hands for a final assault. Having finished gathering his power, Issei unleashed his most devastating roar up to date, towards his parents who unleashed their own attack simultaneously as both their power melded together to one massive weight. Both attacks collided with one another, causing multiple shockwaves reverberating throughout the dimensional gap as both attacks struggled to gain dominance over one another. For a moment, both sides were at a deadlock until one side's shockwaves reverberating throughout the dimensional gap as attacks struggled to gain dominance over one another. Issei could feel his attack slowly being overpowered, so he tried to gush out even more power from his being despite the fact that his body was literally shredding itself apart. More, he did so. However, his rage clouded his rationality, seating his body near its limits. Both Great-red and Orphis knew they had to finish this now, so with one final push they unleashed everything they had, with one added force to both dragon gods. Issei's attack started getting slowly overpowered, as their combined might was making its way towards him, until finally Issei's breath attack dissipated, and he was enveloped by his parents' assault. He let out one final painful scream, before a massive explosion erupted, which could be felt through the dimensional gap. Ophis and Great-red were breathing heavily. This was the first time in their life that they had to ever fight seriously. Add on to the fact that they had to fight against their own son. Their mental exhaustion was beyond normal. They were praying that the fight was over and they could not bear to see her son any longer. And that was especially true for Orphis, who couldn't bear this any longer. As the dust settled, they could see the shadow of a small figure through the smoke. Eventually it cleared, revealed an unconscious Issei drifting aimlessly. Issei! Issei! Both of them shouted at the same time and dashed toward him. After reaching him, Orphis quickly scooped up in her arms to check if he was alive. Luckily, she could feel him breathing. However, one good was able to determine that his body was anything but okay. He had many bleeding cuts all over his body, a few bruises, courtesy of his fight with her husband, and began the worst part with both arms that completely broken. He must have used them at the last second to protect himself against their combined assault. Orphis quickly began to use her powers to heal him as much as possible, but she could not stop the tears from falling her beautiful face over sad state her son was presently in. Great-red voiced her in her thoughts. Thank the heavens he is alive. Breathing out a huge sigh of relief on his son made it out alive. However, looking over at Issei's current state was anything but pleasant, as he continued speaking, and not a moment too soon. If he had lasted any longer, his body would have not survived. The influx of power within himself, Issei would no longer be with us. and not a moment too soon, he thought to himself. However, now that the current crisis has been dealt with, Great-red tried to process how all this came about. He started recalling every single detail since the moment of Issei's departure till now. Eventually, he came upon the realization about the location they found their son in. At the time, he was too preoccupied to get his son out of there and even think through where they were. But now, he has a calmer state of mind. He recognized that the place they teleported was Barkil's shrine, which only gave him very grim thoughts. The only way to figure out the truth was to contact Barkil and find out. He conjured a telepathic link towards Barkil and waited for him to pick up. A few moments later, the signal connected. "Barkil, do you have a moment?" "Red son," he answered back out in a sad state. "What's going on, Barkil? You sound distraught," worried Great-red. "They're gone, Red," wailed Barkil. "What do you mean? Who is gone?" he asked, however, fearing he already knew the answer, given everything that he understood, but still praying for the slim chance that he was wrong. Once again, reality proves to be a cruel mistress. "Shuri and Akano, somehow, Jujusa, figured out our location. While I was gone, they killed my wife. I was able to kill them before they moved on to my daughter. Before I felt an ominous presence outside, which turned to be a trap for the Hajime clan, trapped in a barrier. I could do nothing but watch as lightning came down and decimated my home along with Akano," cried Barkil. "No. It can't be. I failed them, Red. I could not protect them. I cannot believe this. But this does explain what happened with Issei," Great-red said. "Issei." At the mention of him, Barkil quickly showed concern. "What happened? Is he okay?" Despite having recently lost his family, he was still able to show concern over Issei's well-being, which honestly touched Great-red's heart. "Unfortunately not. On our way home, Issei said that he left something at your place and left to go get it. Moments later, Ophis and I felt Issei's power spiral out of control. We quickly teleported to his location only to find him in his dragon form, rampaging with intense rage. Knowing that the other supernatural beings would come by, we forced Issei into the dimensional gap where he had no choice but to knock him unconscious, which we managed to do. I didn't understand what led to this, which is why I called you. But with what you just told me, it stands to reason Issei witnessed Akano's demise, which sent him over the edge. Damn it. How could this have ever happened?" He barely was able to contain his sadness, which Barkil could sense. "So that colossal energy it felt was from Issei." Barkil was surprised at the revelation before reverting back to his sadness, as he understood that Issei went through a terrible ordeal. "Take care of Issei, Red. He needs you now more than ever. A young man like him should never have gone through what he just did." "Yeah, I know. Take care of yourself, Barkil," Great-red said to him. "You too, Red," responded Barkil before he ended the call. After finishing this conversation with Barkil, he hung up his telepathic connection. Thinking about everything he just heard, he still could not believe all that transpired, and that Akano and Shuri were gone. His son's rage suddenly made a lot of sense. He felt extreme rage over what happened to his friends and family, which then gave way to his sadness as he felt extremely bad for Barkil, and you can't even begin to imagine his sadness at losing his entire family in one day. He then remembers a promise he made some years ago to help his family in their time of need, and yet now it seems he failed to keep that promise. He clenched his fist so hard that a few drops of blood could be seen dripping out of his hand. He was not only angry at the situation, but also towards himself for being so useless when they needed him the most. For the first time since his existence, the most powerful being in existence felt powerless. A thought that was most likely shared by his wife, as she holds to unconscious Issei for her dear life. He needed to unleash his own frustrations in the dimensional gap, for he knew if he did not, the human world, Japan, would most likely have perished with this outburst. So he transformed back into his dragon form and unleashed his emotions with a mighty roar. His roar reverberated across the dimensional gap, expressing his anger and his sorrow as his tears started leaking from his eyes. After a few moments, his roar stopped, as he regained his human form and moved towards his wife. Seeing him covered forward, looked towards him. Eyes all from red from crying as she did ask him, What happened?" Ophis needed to know and understand what had happened to let her son into the state he currently was in. She knew it was really bad, considering the outburst Great-red went through, and he usually was more calm, one of the two. With great anguish, he recounted everything he heard from Barkil from the time he returned to the present moment. To say that he was shocked was an understatement. She moved her hand to cover her face as fresh tears started dripping out from her face again. "No, Shuri, and even Akano. How could this be?" She doesn't want to believe such things occurred. "How could we have let this happen to Issei not once, but twice? We were supposed to be his parents to protect him from shit like this, and yet we failed him when he needed us the most. What kind of horrible mother am I to allow such a thing? I'm so sorry, Issei." She sobbed looking at Issei. Seeing this, Great-red quickly embraced her and rubbed her back to try and comfort her. No, don't blame yourself for any of this. It is not your fault. If anything, the blame is mine to bear, for it is the responsibility of the father to ensure his family's well-being and safety, and I have failed both, it seems, he grimly said, causing Ophis to look up in her husband's sorrow at his own uselessness, slowly raising her hand towards his face and giving him a gentle rub, slightly trying to console him, which allowed Great-red to form a smile. He then turned his attention towards Issei. The problem now is how we are going to comfort our son. What do you mean? Questioned Ophis, although she probably knew the answer to her question, but Great-red answered anyways. You know as well as I do how much he cared about Akeno. She is his first love, and they would most likely have become mates in the future, even though it wasn't his fault. Knowing him, he will probably blame himself for failing to protect her. He looked at his unconscious body. This situation is laughable. Barkyle's son just lost his family and is most likely suffering by himself. Issei is probably just as devastated as him, having being lost the love of his life, and I cannot think or do a single thing to help him. Tears slowly dripping down his face as he continued speaking. Many beings fear me for my strength I possess, and even proclaim me as the strongest being, and yet what good is all this power when it fails to be of use whenever they matter at most? My friends, being family, are suffering, and I cannot do anything. He shouted. The last part as his dam broke once again. Started crying once more. Seeing her husband cry broke her heart, but the only thing he could do was console him. She brought his face towards and kissed him tenderly square on his lips. Great-red greatly returned the kiss, emotion slowly calm, having the desired effect if Ophis wanted. As their lips parted, Ophis looked straight into his eyes, with a few tears visible on her face as well, and said, the only thing we can do for Issei right now is support him with everything we have. We cannot change the past, and despite how devastated we feel failing our son, not once but twice, there is nothing we can do but move forward. What we can do, and should do, is ensure that something like this never happens again on our watch. Great-red smiled at her, thankful for her support, as he grabbed her hand and squeezed it a bit. Thanks, Ophis. I really appreciate this. You really are the best mate a dragon could ever hope for, he said, causing Ophis to display a light blush, but grateful that she was cheering him up a bit. As much as she hated to admit it, she loved his obnoxious attitude full of life and energy. To see him in sorrow felt wrong. Suddenly, Ophis felt Issei rustle in her hands, but meaning that she was able to wake up, his eyes slowly began to open, and held his head as if the biggest migraine ever. Not surprising considering that he had taken down by his parents. He scanned his surroundings and saw that he was with his parents, but instead of Ko, they were back in the original home. The dimensional gap, he had no idea where they ended up there. Mom, Dad, what is this? What happened? He started to ask when all of a sudden his memories began to resurface as the tragedy he saw occur right before his eyes. Akeno and Auntie Shuri were gone, and he was powerless to do anything. His emotions shifted from confusion to sadness as he began to cry in his mother's arms. No, this cannot be. Auntie Shuri and Akeno cannot be gone. Ophis was simply devastated seeing the state of her own son, and could only nothing but embrace him, as much as she could even thought it would take his pain away, as Issei continued sobbing in her chest. He went from self-denial to self-loathing. I failed them. I failed Akeno. I promised to protect her from harm, and yet she needed me most. I was powerless to do anything. He slowly recalled the times he promised himself he would grow up to become a splendid dragon like his parents, and however he had promised Akeno to always protect her. Ugh, I'm a failure of a dragon. I'm a failure as a friend. Akeno-san, I'm so sorry. He kept repeating the same apologies over and over. Look at me, Issei, Ophis said as she lifted her son's chin so he could look into her eyes. You should not feel guilty over your events that were beyond your control. What happened that day was not your fault, nor Balkyro's, nor anybody. It was the actions of a very bad man that caused this tragedy, and all blame lies with them, not you. Plus, from what your father told me, it would seem that in your rage, you wiped out the assailants responsible for killing Akeno. So, although this will not bring them back, you did manage to avenge them, so please, stop blaming yourself for something that is clearly not your fault. You know that Shuri and Akeno would want you to live life moving forward, saying the last part with tears dripping down her face. Your mother is right, son. This tragedy is no ways your fault, and we all must move on. We will always cherish precious memories we built together with them, as long as that exists. They will be with us forever, in our dreams and in our hearts. That added Great-red, looking at his son, who turned and listened, knowing that deep in his heart that they were right. So he released everything. He unleashed all of his suffering, crying loudly, clutching his mother's chest. She could embrace him with much tenderness and love as she could allow. While letting out his tears of sadness, Great-red moved forward and embraced his wife and son as they all mourned the loss of their closest friends and family. Minutes passed away by eventually. The crying and sobbing calmed down as Issei separated from his mother's and father's embrace. I want to get stronger, he said, and his parents, who were taken by surprise by his sudden declaration. Nevertheless, he continued, I want to gain the strength to be able to protect those I care for, so that something like this never happens again, so that I never have to feel so useless ever again. He told them with clear grief in his voice, and yet his eyes were full of absolute determination to get stronger. That's my boy, smirked his father, rubbed his son's head, while his mother finally let out a smile, happily interacting between father and son. All right, I guess it's time to return home, Ophis said as she was starting to get back, only to be stopped by Great-red, who shook his head. Unfortunately, that is not the best idea at the present moment, he said. Ophis tilted her head, a bit not understanding why they could not go back, causing Great-red to chuckle at the adorable gesture his wife did before explaining his reasoning. Before we entered the dimensional gap, I sensed the presence of multiple signatures heading towards the shrine. As a result of Issei's outburst, the factions must have sent people to investigate the commotion, and from what I sensed, I can safely deduce that they were in fact leaders of their respective faction. They will most likely put Ko under tight supervision, which is why is that, at the present moment, it is not a good idea to return there. Right now, they are in a state of high alert, so any form of magic, no matter how small, will alert them to our presence at the moment. I do not wish to wish unnecessary conflict with them, so for now, we will be moving to another location, explained Great-red. I understand, but will we live there? Are we going to remain here in the dimensional gap? She asked. Her husband, who grabbed his chin, thinking about her question. After a few moments of thinking, he came up with an answer. After some thought, I believe we should head to Tanin's territory. Tanin's territory? Didn't we previously agree that it might be too risky to live there due to possibility of exposure? Although Issei has grown up, I do not want him in any more danger, she asked Great-red, who answered. After what happened today, neither do I, and I made no mistake. I will make sure that it never happens again. But that's besides the point. Back then, our primary concern was the development of Issei's social skills, we selected a human city. Granted, it did not turn out the way we hoped, but thanks to this interaction with Akeno, everything turned out well. The second reason coincides with the recent events. Issei's little rampage might have brought us to an unexpected benefit. Ophis had question marks on the top of her husband's head. Not understand how is it possible as Great-red's continued due to the amount of devastation caused by Issei. The devils will most likely issue an investigation to figure out what caused such destruction. They, most likely, have figured out that only a being of great power was responsible for this, and thus is a threat to their faction. This will cause them to employ much to their resources and attention into the city, giving us a better chance to remain hidden in Tanin's territory. In addition, from what Bartkill told me years ago, the fallen angels, devil and angels, have been spying for peace to each other together, so there is a big chance that they will send additional resources and manpower to aid the devils, meaning we do not have worry about them either. Explained Great-red to Ophis, who now understood his point of view, to acknowledge validly statement. The final reason is for Issei's sake. As much as it embarrasses me to admit it, Tanin is far better trainer than either you or I. He has spent most of his time training the other younglings to be the best and therefore is most qualified to train Issei, since, let's face it, neither of nor of I have trained a single day in our lives. We were born powerful, two of the most powerful beings in existence without doing a single thing. As a result, we would not be able to train Issei in an effective manner compared to Tanin. Furthermore, being introduced to a dragon community, Issei will be able to make tons of new friends, who will not shun him for his power. Right now, everything has happened, I believe that he will need more power than ever, he told his wife, who simply nodded. However, will he allow us to reside in his territory? Is it to my understanding that he was reincarnated as a devil? Won't alert the devils of our presence? Ophis asked husband immediately. No, I don't think so. Tanin's primary objective has always been the survival of the dragon's race. In fact, the only reason he even discarded his pride, which is something extremely difficult for any dragon to do, and turned into a devil was so that he could claim the underworld territory that contained the last known batch of dragon apples and ensure the survival of our species that depended on those fruits to survive. So no, he would not turn over us to the devils, and if we explain our current circumstances, I'm pretty sure he will accommodate us. He is one of the more reasonable dragons that exist today. Great-red said with absolute certainty, so Ophis decided to trust her husband's judgment just over the years. Alright, then it is settled. Are you ready, Issei? She said, shifting her attention to her son, who remained quiet during the entire conversation, nodded vigorously at her question. Yes, Mom. I will train myself to the bone, and I will definitely become stronger. Strong enough to protect my loved ones, including the both of you. Just watch me, Issei stated, revealing a bright smile that his parents missed so much they were not sure they would ever see again, causing both of them with happiness. That's the spirit, son. Let us go, then. It's the start of a brand new journey. His father started applying his magic teleport to them to their destination. With renewed determination and goal in mind, Issei took the first step towards his future as he looked up to the sky past and thought, please watch over me, Aunt Sure, I vow to you that I will become stronger, so with such rigidity will never fail anyone else again. I will always remember the treasured moments we had together as I move forward, so you don't need to worry about me. I hope you may both rest in peace wherever you are. And that is the end of Chapter 8, A Day to Remember. And that is where we're going to stop for now. I'm not sure how long this video was, but it really took a lot out of me because I'm extremely tired right now. If you couldn't tell in the story, I was kind of taking little breaks and I couldn't really help myself, so I apologize for that. But once again, thank you to my balance breakers. I can't thank you enough. I would say all your names, but you know who you are. So thank you so much for the support that's been going on. It's been absolutely crazy. I just released the movie, and of course it's not going to get as many views because it's just a refurbish, and I decided to post the movie in a one-shot so people don't have to, if they want to go through the playlist or they just want to watch it in one shot and pause where they are, they can do so. So let's try to hit 300 to 400 likes. Like, seriously, thank you. I'm not sure what exactly I'm doing at this point. So I want to add images to my channel, but it's going to take a lot of editing, and I need to learn how to do things like that. So I'll take like a short break, a period of time to come back and learn how to edit. And I am writing the Issei the God Killer is Born series, which will take a fat minute to write the script. And then when I'm done writing the script, I'm gonna like put like different images and things like that to like, because I want to express like the emotion more clearly and him raging way more awesomely than what I do in these stories, because my voice is really good with it, as from what I can tell from your comments. But I would really like to add some pictures because it would make it like, and imagine if I got to add like aura effects and things like that would make it absolutely crazy, like the screen exploding or something. Like, I need to learn how to do those things, and I might take some time to learn how to do that, to try to better myself for your guys' entertainment, because I would enjoy doing something like that. So that's why I also want to do What If Goku Was Betrayed series pretty much on this channel. I do have a Goku channel as well, but it's not built up enough to release a series like that on there. And if I'm going to put my maximum effort into a video, it's going to be on this channel, if you guys know what I'm saying. So with What If Goku Was Betrayed and Issei the God Killer is Born, those series will most likely have images. If something happens, obviously, it happens. It is what it is. But those series should have images, because it'd be so fucking awesome. But they're only going to be like 7 to 10 minutes long because of all the images that I have to put. There's like 40 or 50 images in one video, but it's only 7 to 10 minutes. But you know how long and task consuming that's going to be. So this has been What If Issei Was the Son of Great-red Part 6. You guys have been requesting this very, very long time, so I decided to give it to you. Thank you so much for the support. We're so close to 30,000 subscribers. It's awesome. It's so cool. I can't wait to drive to 50K next. Thank you so much for the support. And remember to go subscribe to my second channel down in the description below if you want to see what ifs on other animes in general. You know what I mean? Tell me what ifs you want to see. And without further ado, Spartanic Arts DxD out.